Hello and welcome to the Playoff Years, the podcast where we analyze and reminisce our favorite playoff appearances year by year. I am your host, Connor O'Donnell, joined by my brother, Brian. How you doing?
I'm good.
So this episode, we take a look at the NLDS Cubs and Nationals series. No surprise here, a very competitive series. This went all 5 games. We're going to begin with Game 1. Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs, Steven Strasburg for the Nationals. Cubs won 3-0. This game was your classic pitcher's duel for the majority. Hendricks only giving up 2 hits. Those hits actually came up in the first 2 innings, so the Cubs pitching just completely shut down this high-powered offense for the Nationals. And this was actually the fewest hits in franchise history in a postseason game for the Nationals. But for Strasburg, he was very dominant, 10 strikeouts, also a postseason franchise record. He had a no-hitter going into the 6th. But the Cubs manufactured 5 hits total on the night, key play being Baez reaching on an error by Anthony Rendon, timely hit in by the Cubs to seal the deal. So your thoughts after Game 1?
The thing that really stood out to me in this game was Kyle Hendricks. Just was so impressive to me with the way that Strasburg started off. Like you said, 6 innings, no hits. It was really impressive to see Hendricks shut down the Nationals as well. Easily could have kind of gotten frustrated and look across the diamond and see Strasburg out there dealing and kind of get overwhelmed. But as usual, Hendricks kept a level head and kept the Cubs in the ball game until their offense could get going.
Yeah, for me, for this game, timely hitting, I think that's in the past, like the 07 and 08 teams, the Cubs really struggled with timely hitting, and especially like their big hitters just really didn't show up at playoff time. But Rizzo and Bryant, they really came through in this game. So I'm feeling really good as a Cubs fan after Game 1. I thought the Cubs looked amazing after this game. So how about Game 2 though? Give me a Game 2.
This one, unfortunately, Cubs dropped this one. The Nationals got off to a 1-0 lead right away in the first with a home run by Rendon. But then the Cubs came back. The next inning, Contreras hit a home run. Rizzo hit a 2-run homer in the 4th to give them a lead. And then John Lester, who I was a little uncertain about going into this series, was great. He pitched 6 innings, 1 run, only 2 hits. And then Pedro Strop came in and pitched well, but then the Cubs bullpen collapsed in the 8th inning with Carl Edwards Jr. giving up a 2-run home run to Bryce Harper on a hanging 3-1 slider curveball, and things kind of went down from there. Montgomery gave up a couple runs too. That really hurt. It really looked like the Cubs were gonna take that game, go up 2-0 in the series, but they walked away with a loss in a tied series.
Yeah, the game felt particularly devastating for me as a Cubs fan since the Cubs were up late. And at this point, Scherzer was still of an unknown of like how well he was going to pitch. I didn't feel too bad. A lot of people were very concerned with of how Edwards pitched, Montgomery as well. But this bullpen that's just the way they've been all season, it seems. So it just, you just have to tip your hat to a good offense as well. I mean, the Nationals has such a great offense that you can only hold them down for so long. And I think my other concern too was, Bryant, Rizzo again provided most of the offense. Contreras, of course, pitched in this game, but I was a little concerned with the rest of the offense.
Yeah, I agree. As much as it hurt, that 2-run homer by Harper was kind of cool too. I mean, I enjoy watching Bryce Harper play baseball. We knew coming into this series the Nationals have a good offense. Up and down the lineup, they have guys that can hurt you, and they did in this game. So I was one of those people that were a little worried after this loss going into the next game to see how the Cubs would respond. So do you want to talk about Game 3?
Yeah, Game 3 was a really interesting one for a couple reasons. One, I was at the game, so I can provide a little further insight. But this was also Jose Quintana's first postseason start of his career. So that was a question mark kind of going in. And this is going to be Max Scherzer's game because he's coming off his so-called tweak or injury. We're once again, we're not sure how he's going to pitch, but Cubs managed to steal this game. I would say they definitely stole the game. They won 2-1. The big story of the game, Scherzer dominant, but Quintana also pitched really great, I thought. Nationals opened up the scoring thanks to an embarrassing error by Kyle Schwarber. Even though I couldn't see the play, I knew it was just a huge blunder by Kyle. So unfortunately, Joe has to take Quintana out after that. So the crowd boos Madden's decision. Strop gives up the double, of course, to Zimmerman. But luckily, the Cubs managed to scrape together 2 runs. Zobrist breaking up the no-hitter in the 7th was the key at bat, chasing Scherzer out of the game. Overall, Cubs only had 4 hits in the game, but the Nationals, they only had 3 hits in the game. So that's the big number that sticks out, of course, in this game, that was the big story, was 4 errors from the Cubs. And that I don't think that counts the bonehead base running play by Hayward in the 8th. So it's just a really crazy game to be at. I thought the atmosphere was great. So a great game to be at. I know you didn't really get to watch this game. So what were your thoughts after Game 3?
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the Cubs were pretty lucky to win this game, making 4 errors. I was really, really happy to see Jose Quintana perform so well. This was his first playoff start. We didn't know how he would respond to the pressure, and he really, really stepped up and pitched great. There was a moment later, you mentioned Zobrist getting that big hit to chase off Scherzer. At this point in the series, I was a little fed up with Zobrist, seeing him struggle. I didn't have much confidence in him at this point in the game. And then he gets a hit and shows what I know. But yeah, that was a big play. And then your guy Almora had a big hit right after that too. Again, I think the Cubs were kind of lucky to pull this one out. But at the same time, I'm glad to see them respond after that tough loss in Game 2 to pull this one out.
Yeah, other big takeaways for me, I thought Quintana got overshadowed by Scherzer in the game. A lot of the post-game coverage, it was all about Scherzer. Not much talk about Quintana. He really deserves the credit. He really matched Scherzer in this game. And I'll give Madden some credit. He went right back out there with Edwards, and he pitched great. Really, the only decision that people would argue, obviously, as the crowd booed, was bringing Strop to face Zimmerman in that 6th inning. So, other than that, I thought it was a great game. A lot of fun. I was definitely feeling a lot more confident going into Game 4, but there was a lot of things going on before Game 4. So I know you, Brian, you were going to be going to Game 4, but what happened with Game 4?
The game was originally scheduled for Tuesday. I was going to the game. I was pretty excited, even though I have had some pretty bad luck attending playoff baseball games. So I was hoping to see my first playoff win. I like that the Nationals had Tanner Roark on the hill because he's pretty weak in terms of the other Nationals pitchers. So I was pretty excited, but the weather did not cooperate. The game ended up getting pushed to Wednesday, and so everyone assumes that the Nationals would start Steven Strasburg, skip over Tanner Roark. And then reports started flying around that Strasburg was sick and he wasn't going to start, and everyone was going crazy. Dusty Baker was saying that it was because of the Chicago mold, which was kind of funny. I don't know if he was joking or if he was serious or what. Even Wednesday morning, the Nationals GM is doing radio shows in Washington saying that Strasburg's still sick and he isn't going to pitch, but then eventually the Nationals announced that he is going to pitch. So who knows what was going on there, but he did make the start and he was incredible. He pitched 7 shutout innings against the Cubs, had 12 strikeouts, only 2 walks, 3 hits. But really, the Cubs kept it close, though, again. Jake Arrieta made the start for the Cubs, and that was another question mark for me, was Arrieta. He only pitched 4 innings. He was a little wild. I think he had 5 walks. But then John Lester came in on relief and pitched great. Again, 3 2/3 innings. He even picks off a base runner. So at that point the game is 1-0, and Lester is picking us up, and I just felt like the Cubs were just going to hang in there again and come back late and get a win. But after that pickoff, Lester gives up a hit. Madden pulls Lester for C.J. Edwards, who again had kind of a rough game. He walks a couple guys, loads the bases. Madden takes him out for Wade Davis with the bases loaded, who gives up a grand slam. So I thought it was the right move at the time to take out Edwards, and to take out Lester too. You know, he had thrown a lot of pitches. He's probably not used to throwing that many in relief, so I was okay with the move of bringing in Edwards, but obviously it didn't really work out for the Cubs. So what did you think about that move to take out Lester at that point?
I agree with you too. I thought Madden did another decent job with managing the bullpen, because I know fans have been very critical of Madden when choosing the timing of when to take somebody out. Because fans always complain, why don't you take him out? Or why'd you leave him in too long? It's a kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. So I thought he recognized at the correct time, Edwards doesn't really have it. We should get him out of there. And yeah, it just didn't work out for the Cubs. It just wasn't their day, really. At that point, when Taylor hit the grand slam, it was like misting. And I hate to bring up the players, they're going to be complaining about the weather, but I think it was definitely a factor that day. It was pretty chilly. Wind was blowing in. So earlier in the game, too, Russell almost hit a two-run homer that would have given the Cubs the lead. So that was another big turning point of the game, especially because Addison Russell had a key error to give up the one run early on. So it was just kind of another low-scoring, low-offense kind of game. Cubs only had 3 hits all day. A lot of swinging strikeouts. Nationals only had 5 hits, too. And the other big stat, too, Cubs 2 errors, which brings up a total of 7 in the series. So I was a little let down going just the way they played. Arrieta definitely made me feel a little bit better. Same thing with how Lester pitched. But how were you feeling going into Game 5?
My confidence wasn't hurt too badly, I don't think. You know, you brought up the weather. I think that was a huge part of this game. It was disgusting outside that day. It was cold. Just walking around outside was bad. I can't imagine having to play a baseball game in that weather. I really thought Game 5, to me, I was thinking 50-50. The Nationals are a really good team. They have Scherzer waiting in the wings, but, you know, the Cubs had Hendricks, so I was feeling okay about Game 5, and that game sure did not disappoint.
Yeah, Game 5 was just completely insane. A lot of fans said that this game was even just more crazy than the Game 7 World Series, which I agree with. So a lot to look forward to. Gio Gonzalez is on the hill for the Nationals. He looked hittable in Game 2. The Cubs could definitely get to Gonzalez. So I was not too worried about that. But, I mean, at the same time, Gio Gonzalez, really good ERA. But the big storyline, as the broadcasters brought up, in the first inning, if the Cubs can get to him in the first, the Cubs can really open this game up. And that came out right off the bat. So John Jay, leadoff double, almost gets thrown out. Dusty has to challenge it, and of course that's quickly overruled. Although you do get 2 playoff challenges, so this isn't one challenge like a normal baseball game. Chris Bryant, though, strikes out swinging. There was a wild pitch actually right before that, so John Jay's on third. Chris Bryant, tough series, tough game. That was the other thing we didn't mention. Game 4, 4 strikeouts. I mean, that's pretty rough for Bryant. I'll give the total numbers on him after we talk about this game, but pretty alarming stuff. But luckily, Anthony Rizzo comes up big, ground out double, scores Jay. But then Gonzalez, he really falls off here. Contreras walk, Albert Morris single, and then Russell walks, and then all of a sudden we have the bases loaded with Jason Hayward. Fortunately, this is the at-bat that really stung, because I thought Gio Gonzalez was obviously struggling to throw strikes. And if I was Hayward, I would just not even take that bat off my shoulder until he throws me at least 2 strikes. I think it was the second pitch. Hayward, just a weak ground ball to first. So what do you think about the first inning? Did you feel that we should have scored way more runs than we should have?
Yes, but I also felt pretty good with the inning. They made Gonzalez throw a lot of pitches. I was glad that they scored at least one. It would have been nice to get more, but I liked what I saw. You know, the previous game obviously getting shut out and not getting many hits. It was good to get some base runners and get some pressure on the Nationals. So it looked to me like the Cubs offense would have a pretty good night, and it ended up being the case.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, besides the Hayward at bat, the approach for all the Cubs hitters was much improved from the previous game. I mean, I say Bryant striked out, but he worked a 3-2 count. So Contreras the walk, and obviously Russell the walk. So the approach was there. The Cubs are definitely going to be scoring more runs. Kyle Hendricks comes in the bottom of the first, gets a 0 on the board. Trey Turner starts up with a single. That's kind of like a weak infield single. Turner steals second. Jason Worth flies out, and Turner goes to third. And then Harper hits a ground ball. Baez just guns him down at home plate. Huge play in the game. And then Hendricks gets Zimmerman striking out swinging. So then we move to the second. 1, 2, 3. Cubs go pretty much in order pretty quickly. So why don't you go over the second inning, because this one was a doozy. I actually missed the second inning because I went to get dinner. So I was not leaving my place after this. So what happened in the second inning? Because I'm assuming you saw this inning, right?
Yeah. So bottom of the second, Kyle Hendricks, he does end up giving up 4 runs. But really, I don't think he pitched as bad as that sounds. He does give up a home run to Daniel Murphy, Cub killer, but then he gives up a bloop hit to Rendon. Wieters has a bunt hit. They're not really squaring up Hendricks, but he's just kind of getting unlucky. And then Michael Taylor comes up after, last game he hit the grand slam. So here he comes again, home runs again. 0-2 pitch. And the pitch was, it was seemingly up in his eyes. I don't even know how he hit the ball, let alone hit a home run on it. Yeah, I mean, that's, 4 runs right there, and I didn't feel too bad. For a 4-run inning, I didn't feel that bad because I didn't feel like Hendricks was making terrible pitches. He gave up a bloop hit and a bunt. After the home run, he manages to strike out Gonzalez and Turner. And then eventually, he gets to Zimmerman and strikes him out too with some really nice changeups. So, it's 4-1 now. It doesn't feel great, but it's only the second inning. Cubs have the top of their order coming up next. So I felt pretty good considering.
Yeah, I think at this point, I wasn't down. I was just, I felt the anxiety rise just because I knew the Cubs are going to come back. I was just like, oh, it's going to be one of these games where it's going to be back and forth. Here we go. Buckle in, because I knew this was going to be a game right after this inning. I knew the Cubs were going to at least make some noise. They were not going to go away quietly. Same thing with the Nationals. Just the way their offense was looking much improved, because Trey Turner, he's already on base, and Murphy has been quiet as well and hits a home run. I mean, we've seen Taylor play pretty well the whole series, so that wasn't too surprising. But some of these hitters waking up, I was like, ooh, this might cause some trouble for the Cubs. Later on in the inning, I thought Hendricks was gonna bounce back, which he did. So we moved on to the third inning, which the Cubs get 2 runs back here. So Bryant leads off with the double. So right on there, Rizzo strikes out looking, kind of a borderline pitch. Unfortunately, we couldn't get there. But back-to-back walks by Contreras and Almora. And then Russell grounds out, weak ground ball. Then Bryant scores. And then we have a wild pitch. Gio was pretty wild in this game. So Almora scores, of course. Hayward, not really his best game, strikes out swinging. So Cubs just chip away 4-3, feeling pretty good. And then Hendricks, pretty clean inning, does give up a single, but otherwise pitches really well. So we're going to move into the fourth inning, where the Cubs again go 1, 2, 3. Not a lot of 1, 2, 3 innings in this game, but we had some sprinkled here and there. Hendricks again out for the bottom of the fourth. 2 strikeouts started off the inning, so Kyle's looking pretty good. Worth and Harper scrape together some hits. Deep fly ball by Zimmerman, though. It's kind of scary, but the Cubs get out of the inning unscathed. I paused a little bit because the fifth inning. Wow, this fifth inning. We were texting back and forth. This was. I couldn't believe what I saw in the top of the fifth. So I'll start off the inning. Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, routine, ground out and fly ball, I should say. Max Scherzer comes in. So a little nervous. How many innings are the Nationals going to get out of Scherzer was the big question. Especially he looked just dominant, gets the Cubs' best 2 hitters out right away. And then what happens after this? Try and break down the craziness of what happens after this.
Yeah, I still have a hard time believing what happens after that. This was my worry for this game, was Max Scherzer coming in and just shutting down the Cubs. And like you said, it looked like he was going to for those first 2 hitters. But then Contreras reaches on an infield hit, and then Madden decides to pinch hit for Almora with Zobrist. I know you weren't a big fan of that because you like Almora, but it ended up working out again. And, as much criticism as Joe has taken in this series, I think he's really made some good pinch hitting decisions. This one worked out. Zobrist gets a hit. So the Cubs have first and second with 2 out, and then probably one of the biggest plays of the game here, Addison Russell doubles right down the line to score 2. The Cubs take the lead. I did not expect the Cubs to hit Scherzer at all, and then they score 2 runs on him with 2 out. But that was not the end of the inning. For some reason, Dusty Baker decides to intentionally walk Jason Hayward.
Yeah, so what do you think about that? I mean, obviously, me thinking as a Cubs fan, like there's no way you walk Hayward. But from Dusty Baker's point of view, do you think this is the correct decision, considering how bad Baez has been in this series?
I still probably wouldn't have walked Hayward, but yeah, you do have Baez coming up next. With Scherzer on the mound, it's almost a guaranteed strikeout to me. So I'm sure that's what was going through his head. And he actually did get a strikeout, but it ended up being a wild pitch on the strikeout, and Baez was safe at first, and then Wieters threw the ball into right field. Probably shouldn't have done that. Russell scores on the play. Hayward and Baez are at second and third from that error. Looking back at that play later in the game, you notice on Baez's swing, he actually makes contact with the catcher's mask. I didn't know this, but according to the rules, the play should have been called dead, and the Nationals should have been out of the inning right there. So the Cubs catch a pretty big break right there. So
and that seems to be a common theme with this game. There's several key plays that when you slow down, the Cubs pretty much caught all the breaks when it comes to that. Really weird play. When you see it in real time, it's one motion. Wieters takes off the mask as kind of Baez hits him. So you don't really notice it, and Wieters doesn't sell it at all. So that's why I'm like, why is Wieters complaining? And then you see it. Oh, okay. So really weird rule. I'm not a huge fan of the swinging strike rule. I mean, we can address that really quick. Do you like that rule? I think it's kind of bad for baseball. Or I've just never really understood why need to have it in the game. I guess it kind of makes it fun, have those really unique situations happen once in a while. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I don't know. That's kind of just part of baseball to me. I don't know. Yeah, I never knew about if they make contact with the catcher unintentionally like that, and it's umpire's discretion, and I guess it couldn't be reviewed. So yeah, that was a huge play right there.
Yeah, huge to say the least. Tommy LaStella comes up next, reaches on a catcher's interference. Just another play that just rarely happens in baseball, just happens to happen. So LaStella gets the first, bases are loaded now. John Jay comes up, hit by a pitch. Dusty complains that he maybe fouled it off or something like that. Obviously he didn't. Cubs score another run, making it 7-4. Chris Bryant pop fly on the first pitch, unfortunately. I thought Bryant probably could have worked a few more pitches in that at bat because Scherzer was obviously rattled, I would think. But 4 runs, 3 hits, 2 errors, 3 left on base. Cubs up 7-4. What a crazy inning.
Yeah, I read after the game that there has never been another game in the history of baseball where a runner reached on intentional walk and then a drop third strike, then catcher's interference, and then a hit by pitch. I've read that's never happened before in baseball. So that kind of just shows you how insane that inning really was.
Yeah, it just encapsulates this game in general. If you ran this game 1,000 times, and people have been saying this, if you ran this game 1,000 times, there's no way you would get the same result ever again. So just a complete crazy game. We take it down a notch in the bottom of the 5th, luckily. Brian Dunston comes in. He does give up a leadoff walk, but after that, a line out from Anthony Rendon. Wieters strikes out. Strupp comes in for Taylor and gets Taylor. So actually a relatively quiet inning for the Nationals, which was very rare in this game. So we move to the 6th, and this was another kind of crazy inning where Rizzo and Contreras, they both ground out. Zobrist gets a walk, so another key at bat for Zobrist. And then Addison Russell hits it's ruled a double. I don't know how this is not an error. You'll have to shine me in. on an explanation of how this is not an error. Hits a fly ball to Worth, and Worth just completely misses it. The commentators try to cover up. Oh, he lost it in the lights. You can see the slow motion replay. He just misses it. So Worth completely misses it, and Zobrist scores all the way from first. There are 2 outs, so he was definitely running. So Cubs are up now 8-4. But I mean, this is something that we've seen from Worth, I guess, right? That the Nationals finally got burned by his defense.
Yeah, it was not the best play you've seen out of a left fielder. I guess it wasn't an error because I guess he didn't get his glove on it. It didn't look to me like he was acting like he lost it in the lights, but he missed it by a foot. I mean, it wasn't even close. So I almost think he had to have lost it in the lights. But I mean, he wasn't acting like he did. But I really don't know what happened in that play. But this moment in the game after, we handled Scherzer. We scored a bunch of runs on him. We get this kind of lucky run. We had all those crazy things happen that in the 5th inning, it really looked like things were going the Cubs' way. But again, it's only the 6th inning, so there's more to come.
At this point, I actually thought the Cubs had it because I kind of thought the Nationals were kind of giving up, especially from that play. I was like, oh, they've really just lost it, because I rarely see that ever in a Major League Baseball game. So I was like, okay, maybe the Cubs have a chance. But then, as we see in the bottom of the 6th, things started to get even crazier. And this is kind of what the innings looked for the rest of the game almost. Well, Strop looked pretty good. Groundouts for the first 2 batters. He's looking solid. But unfortunately, Worth works a walk. So then the Cubs bring in Mike Montgomery to replace Pedro Strop. Do you want to go over what happened after that?
This was kind of a big turning point, I thought, in the game. Mike, you're hoping to get some quality innings out of Montgomery here, I think. Since it's only the 2nd inning, Cubs bullpen hasn't been great. Montgomery is kind of your bridge guy, maybe, but he clearly didn't really have it. He gives up a double to Harper and then a wild pitch, and then Zimmerman walks. He gives up a double to Murphy, so the Nationals score a couple runs there. So really, that was bad for the Cubs right there, I think. They needed Montgomery to get some innings for them, and he clearly just didn't really have his good stuff. And I think that had a pretty big effect on how Madden had to use his bullpen in the last 3 innings, which ended up being really, really interesting.
Yeah, even Madden mentioned that in the postgame. He was expecting more out of Montgomery, so I think that's what ruined the landscape of what the next few innings looked at, because Madden had to make some interesting decisions with the bullpen, to say the least. So the Cubs, next inning, they try to get something going, and they actually do. Kyle Schwarber hits one at the wall, long single, and Jay follows up with another single, and Schwarber went to third on that, and then Bryant ground out, Schwarber scores. So the Cubs do add on, which really helped get some insurance run here, 9-6, because the Nationals they're gonna score some more runs. So huge inning in there to at least answer with at least one, just chip away. But bottom of the 7th, Carl Edwards comes in, so the heart attacks begin because leadoff walk to Michael Taylor, and the heart attacks continue, and then we bring in Quintana, which I was kind of surprised with. Were you surprised with him coming in at this point in the game?
Yeah, I didn't think the Cubs were going to use Quintana unless it was a situation where they were bringing him in earlier in the game to kind of get 2 or 3 innings, kind of like how Lester was used in Game 4. Yeah, I didn't know what to think of this move. With using Edwards and then taking him out right away, I'm looking at the bullpen, and I'm just wondering how in the world they are going to get through the rest of this game with who, at this point they only had, after Edwards, they only had Quintana, Wade Davis, and then Justin Wilson and John Lackey. So not a ton of options for you. So they bring in Quintana. He gets a quick out, and then gives up a run on a sac fly. So they have 2 outs, and then Joe Madden kind of shocks me a little bit and brings in Wade Davis in the bottom of the 7th inning, and I didn't know what to think. All I was saying is how are they gonna get through the 9th inning when the Nationals have their top of their order coming up. And I know this was a big moment in the game, and they needed an out here, because if they don't stop the bleeding here, who knows what happens. There was nobody else in that bullpen. I didn't know what they were going to do. But yeah, so Davis comes in and he gets Zimmerman on a huge strikeout to end the inning. But 9-7, and this Cubs still have to get through 6 more outs. So it was going to be a wild ride.
At this point, did you think they were going to lose?
Yeah. When they brought in Davis in that moment, obviously having flashbacks to last year with Chapman and all of that controversy, I never really viewed Davis as a guy that I would want going more than 1 inning. I feel like when the Cubs used him this year in non-save situations, I don't think he fared very well. I was happy that he got out of the 7th, but I didn't see him being able to get through 2 more innings without giving up more runs.
Yeah, it's funny. Brothers think alike, or maybe it's just Cubs fans think alike, because I texted my wife at this point. I was like, the Cubs, they're going to lose this game now. I just had that feeling. I just couldn't believe it. And I'm sure Chapman had something to do with it. I think it was that Brewers game that he gave up his first blown save. Similar type situation. I don't think he came in the 7th inning, but it was kind of like a long save, a little test. And I think that's what put the doubt in my head, because I think most of us knew that Madden's like, oh, Davis, you're in for the rest of the game. If we either win with you or really lose with you. So that was my mindset going into this 8th inning here. And Cubs offense just not really bringing it after this. Pretty quick at bats. Like all the Nationals at bats, really long, stressful. Cubs at bats, 2-3 pitches, groundouts, strikeouts. That's just what the Cubs were bringing to the table at this point. So we go right into the bottom of the 8th inning. And the heart attacks continue. Leadoff walk to Daniel Murphy. Walk to Anthony Rendon. Adam Lind. He's been pretty hot in this series. I think it was 2 for 3 at this point, or maybe even 2 for 2. And luckily, on the first pitch, Adam Lind grounds to a double play. Another huge turning point. There's tons of turning points in this game, but at that point, I was like, okay, the Cubs can maybe I knew the Nationals were going to at least score probably a run, but at least that will stem the bleeding. We got 2 quick outs. But Murphy was out on third base this time, and Michael Taylor, of course, being probably the best hitter for the Nationals, singles. Murphy scores. Cubs are up only 9-8 now. And then the catcher, Lobaton, I think is how you pronounce it, also singles. So first and second now. And with Trey Turner's up, Wilson Contreras, of course, does the snap throw to first. Call is safe, but then we challenge. Did you think this was going to be overturned?
No, I didn't. Even when they kept showing the replays, and you could see that the base runner's foot comes off the base, and before it comes off the base, you see Rizzo put the tag on him. But I still now feel when he has his foot off the base, you can't really see if Rizzo has the glove on him. In this moment of the game, I just could not see the umpires overturning this call. But they did. And the Cubs catch another huge break.
It's the third out in the inning. That's just so huge. And same thing with me. I don't think there's any way they can overturn it. But I know this is the playoffs, and I guess this is what replay is for, I guess. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this. Oh, they're off for a millisecond. Call them out. Them's the breaks, and that's why you're supposed to slide in head first as well, so you can just keep the hand on instead of the Lobaton actually went with the feet first. And that's how the play broke down. So the Cubs, I really felt, escaped that inning there. And we go into the 9th. Again, typical 1-2-3 for the Cubs hitters, 2 strikeouts, a line out. So we go into the bottom of the 9th. I actually go to a local bar because I just couldn't handle being at my house anymore. Wade Davis somehow looks better than the previous 2 innings. Gets Trey Turner on a fly ball. Jason Worth swinging strikeout. And then Bryce Harper, swinging strikeout to end the game. Cubs win 9-8 in one of the most craziest games I've ever seen. I mean, total stat lines, Cubs 9 hits, Nationals 14 hits. Big mention, Cubs no errors in this game. And Nats had 2 errors. But Cubs pitching 9 walks, Nationals pitching 6 walks, although some of those intentional walks. And Cubs 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position, even though they scored 9 runs. What stuck out to you the most as far as for this game and how you wrap this game up?
I think The biggest play to me was that pickoff in the bottom of the eighth. I think without that, I think they maybe lose. Honestly, I can't believe Wade Davis came out in the bottom of the ninth and pitched like he did. I mean, that was awesome. It was really cool to see. It was just an awesome game. I still feel like Game 7 of the World Series last year was better, but I mean, this one is right up there. Can't really beat it. I mean, it was awesome.
I think John Lester perfectly, even though how he said it kind of colorfully in his post-game interview, he just said this team is just so cocky and so confident that I think that was my only redeeming thought, that the Cubs were going to win the game, was just, this team, they just know how to pull out winning ball games. And they just continue to do this, and they did it again somehow. I still can't believe it. And Nationals, you go with the same narrative that they can't win in the big time. And I guess they're right. It just seems like they can't, because a lot of people put the blame on Dusty, particular Cubs fans. I don't think Dusty really deserves that much hate for this game or this series either. I mean, obviously there's going to be some questionable decisions along the way, but I thought he got a little bit too much flack. But when you look at some of the stats, though, for the series, Chris Bryant, as I said, 10 strikeouts in the series. That's a lot for him. After the first two games, he pretty much quieted down. Baez 0 for 14, didn't have a hit. So the secondary hitting just didn't really show up with the Cubs that much. Madden had to make the key pinch hits to kind of jumpstart the offense, which really helped. Rizzo 4 for 20, so not bad, but he had 6 RBIs. That was the big thing. He got the RBIs when he needed it. He didn't really need to make the big hits. Russell 4 for 18, 4 huge RBIs with that. The broadcast team, they were like, Contreras, not really a big series. I would have to strongly disagree with them. I mean, his numbers, 3 for 14, 1 home run, 1 RBI, and only hit 214. Sure, that doesn't seem like great numbers. 6 walks, I think that's huge. And he had the best on-base percentage on the team. I think that's invaluable for this team, and I thought he really grew up this series. So, as for the Nationals, as the big stats, Michael Taylor, huge series, 1.178 OPS, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs. He was the only hitter that hit over 300. Harper, Zimmerman, Murphy, Trey Turner, Worth, they all had pretty quiet series. I mean, all of them hit 211 and under. And the RBIs, 2 or 3. Trey Turner, 7 strikeouts. He had a lot of strikeouts. The Cubs kept Turner off the base pass, which everybody mentioned at the beginning of the series was a key thing in the series. So I think that's another thing why I think the Cubs won the series. Trey Turner off the base pass. Strasburg, though, you get 14 innings pitched, 22 strikeouts, 3 walks, 0 earned runs. That's just crazy that the Cubs managed to squeak out a win in the series with Strasburg pitching that well. I almost feel like the Cubs almost stole it, but at the same time, all these games were close that any team could have won. So hell of a series. Let's go into our MVP picks and our play of the series. Brian, who's your MVP of the series?
I'm gonna have to go with Contreras. That was funny. You bring up the announcer saying he hasn't had a big series. Yeah, they were like, well, other than having a really good arm and calling a good game and hitting a home run, like he hasn't really done anything. The numbers weren't that great for him. I think he handled the pitching staff really well. Cubs starters were awesome. So I go Contreras.
Yep, solid pick. I mean, Hendricks, after game 1, says, yeah, Contreras was just calling perfect pitches, and we got into that great rhythm. So he definitely deserves a lot of the credit, particularly for that game 1 performance. My MVP, though, is Wade Davis. 3 saves, just that 7-out save, too. Just remarkable stuff. I thought he was just the most consistent player on the Cubs team. A lot of the other players have just been so erratic almost, and I can't imagine winning the series without him. But what about play of the series, though, for you?
Again, it's that got to be the pickoff play from Contreras in the bottom of the 8th of that game 5. That was just such a huge moment to me. I think if that doesn't happen, I don't know if the Cubs win that game. I can't believe the umpires overturned that. Kudos to the Cubs replay guy up in the booth who saw that, I guess, and made sure that they reviewed it. I mean, so many plays, especially in that game 5, but for me, that's the play of the series for me.
As I know, my play of the series, I wanted to note that the Cubs Apparently, they are the first team ever to win an LDS without homering in any of their wins. And the Cubs teams, they've been kind of dependent on the home run ball. So my play of the series is the Addison Russell double. So when you don't hit home runs, you have to make the big hits at the right time. And I thought that was what got the momentum started, and that put the doubt in the Nationals pitching. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay, Russell, he's back, because he had that shaky game 4. So I thought that was a huge step, not just for this game, but going forward. So that's my play game, and that's my MVP, Wade Davis. And that will do it for this edition of the playoff years. Hopefully recording another one after this Dodgers series, and I'm hoping that it's just less stressful than the other one. I don't know about you, but I just can't take another stressful baseball series like that. Just that last game too, 4 hours and 37 minutes. It seemed like it took forever. Oh, how you feeling?
Yeah, I don't know what to expect from this Dodgers series. I hope the Cubs have some energy left in them. That last series really drained all their bullpen arms. Starters are going to be on short rest coming up here. Dodgers are going to be without Corey Seager for the whole series, which is huge. So it should be good. A nice rematch from last year.
Yep, definitely fun storylines to follow, and I think it's going to be another great series. So with that, I think that will wrap up the second episode of the playoff years. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Go Cubs, go, and fly the W.